Welcome to the Reininger virtual tasting. We're doing a vertical of Helix Merlots. I should say the Helix tasting today. So thanks for taking time out of your Saturday here to join us. And today we're going to be tasting 6 of our Helix Merlots, starting with the 2003, and we're going up through 2009. We actually have 2 2005 Merlots, one from Stillwater Creek in Columbia Valley. So we have with us today our moderator, who is Abby Clark, our marketing director and events coordinator. And so she's going to keep us on track. She'll introduce the wines and give us a little bit of technical information about them, and we'll just jump in and give our impressions. We apologize. We thought Raul was going to be here today with us, but he had some family issues to attend to over in the Tri-Cities today. So unfortunately, he's not here with us because we really had a fun, incredible time going through these wines about a week and a half ago, and just fantastic discussion between the 4 of us, actually. And so hopefully we can replicate that today here. Well, I know we will, because we have more input here with all of you. And so I introduced Abby, but on my screen to my right, I have no idea where he is on your screen, but Sir Dorian. Dorian is our cellar master. I started off with us, gosh, Dorian, how many years? 7, 9 years?
7,
9 years?
yeah, 7
years ago. So in the tasting room. And he moved to production, and he's now our cellar master, and he is really learning a lot about wine and developing a very nice palate. And so we really appreciate his comments. So we just thought it'd be fun to have a nice group discussion here, and you can kind of get a feel for how we talk about wines and what we see when we're just hanging around chatting and tasting through barrels and whatnot. So Abby, do you have anything else you want to throw in? Or
no, I think the only thing that to mention to everybody else, besides the fact that we'll be starting with the 03 Merlot, is if you didn't have an opportunity or you want to purchase more, I do still have some of every single vintage we are tasting tonight, as well as a couple on the younger side that we won't be tasting as well.
All right, so the mystery Merlots, man, I'm not sure which ones you have, but we are going to start with the oldest, which is 2003, and we're going to proceed to the youngest wines. And so the reason why we're doing that, the older wines tend to have a little bit more delicate flavors and nuances to them. So I want to make sure that we don't run over those guys with the bolder, younger, fresher wines that are a little more upfront. So Abby, you want to start with the introduction of the 2003, please? And
certainly, yeah, the 2003 is a real treat. Actually, a lot of these older wines will feature vineyard sourcings that we no longer work with. So Chuck can also talk about those if we have a time. But the 2003, it's 85% Merlot, 14% Cabernet Franc, and 1% Cabernet Sauvignon. And we got this fruit from Clifton Hill, Pleasant, Pepperbridge, and Sundance. So for those of you more familiar with our wines, Pepperbridge is the only vineyard out of those 4 that we're still working with today. And we bottled it in 2005. So it was probably released in 2005 or 2006 originally.
yeah, my recollection of the 2003 vintage is that it was a fairly warm year. In fact, I think at the time it was just about one of the warmest up until 2003. Since we've kind of shattered those records quite a few times, I think. Just give quick background on the vineyards. The Pleasant Vineyard is over by Prosser, and we sourced Cab Franc from them for many, many years. I think the first year we were with them, we actually maybe got a little bit Merlot from them also, but that's where the Cab Franc is coming from in this particular vineyard. And they had very, very nice Cab Franc. In fact, some great Cab Francs that were produced in state came from there. But the vineyard has been sold, and anyway, the reason why I decided to leave was more for logistics, just running around too many different places all around the state, and was kind of getting a little too spread too thin, if you will. So, but fun vineyard. And Sundance is over on the Wahluke slope near Mattawa. And they've gone to, it's a Milbrandt vineyard, and they've changed that vineyard to machine harvesting. And so that's why we decided to get out of there. They told me they were going to be doing that in another year or two. So, but we get some nice fruit from there too. And Clifton Hill is another Milbrandt vineyard. It started out as an independent vineyard, and before they even had their first harvest, they sold it to Milbrandt. It's actually right at the foot of the hill to the east of Mattawa, and right by Milbrandt Winery itself. Again, some really nice fruit from there. But Milbrandt wanted to keep more of that for themselves. So anyway, let's get on with the tasting here. One of the things that in my notes that I noted from last tasting, we pre-poured these here for us here at the winery today. But one of the things I noted right away was a little brickish color that the wine has. So it's always the first thing I look at when I'm tasting wine. I look for the color and also for the clarity of wine, and that will give me an indication of what perhaps to look for. The brickish color is telling me, okay, it's getting some age to it. As the wine ages, will start turning brickish. I just had a young wine recently that was kind of brickish. What that means is that it's aging really quickly. It wasn't our wine. It means that perhaps it saw way too much oxygen during the winemaking process. Anyway, but this doesn't worry with me, the amount of brick color into this. It's actually perfectly normal. So it has a real nice kind of ruby, actually garnet color, more garnet these days. As wine ages, it kind of goes from ruby to garnet. So those were my impressions on it. I got some real savory notes, umami, a little bit. I could even get a little salinity in it, and cranberry and cherry, and a tiny bit of aged, excuse me. Dorian, you want to jump in here?
Oh, sorry, I'm I'm trying to catch up. Sorry. Yeah, I think this wine is considering I personally am starting to like more aged Merlots as I've progressed throughout my time here at the company. And this 03 Merlot, what I do like about it, it's an approachable Merlot. It's not showing any I think you still got time to drink it, which is nice, which is good. Definitely on the lighter side, soft body. I elaborate on the nose a little bit on what you're talking about. I even get a little bit of like dates. I kind of get a little bit of dates on the nose. Maybe I'm getting that briny celery salt on the nose. I'm not getting as much fruit right now. I'm getting more like old wine character, and other aspects of the wine are showing. I'm not getting heavy amounts of fruit right now, but that's what you would expect with a 17-year-old Merlot. But I like the way it's holding up right now, to be honest with you. I wish I had my notes from that tasting that we did, but so that's why I'm trying to just get reacquainted with the wines again. But I'm definitely excited for the remainder of them. Sorry, I'm drawing blanks right now.
No, that's okay. That's okay, Dorian, because what I get on the palate too. One, I love the mouthfeel of it. It's real nice texture, silky, very soft, rounded tannins. One thing I really loved what you said. You talked about the soy in there and a little umami. For me, this wine, it's a beautiful wine. If you like aged wines, it's a beautiful wine, but it's a drink now. I wouldn't suggest holding it longer. I mean, you certainly can, but it's going to continue to lose more fruit. So for me, it's that perfect balance of fruit and age, showing just a tiny bit of soft leather going on in there. Looking back at my notes, do I show anything else on here? And I really still get a little bit of Asian spice, exotic spices, that real fine layer of it. But I love the balance. I love how integrated it is. And but in my book, it's definitely a drink now. So if you have it, if you like wines with a little bit of age, you're not going to be disappointed in this one. If you like more fruit forward wines, perhaps you might think it's a little over the hill. But for me, boy, I think it's right on. It's spot on, and pleasantly surprised with this. So how about you folks? What kind of comments do you have on it? Any thoughts?
I'm seeing, well, Amy said that Amy Olson had mentioned that she really likes how it's holding up for being an older wine, which is like what we agreed with. The body is pretty nice for it being that old. Jerry said he caught a little bit of smoke in the aroma. And Deb mentioned that she tastes a little bit more of the old world, Euro in character, less fruity, which is kind of what we were speaking on again earlier. But
You're
And
getting that leather.
KV mentioned pencil shavings.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Well, you know, I personally haven't gotten that, but I mean, I certainly believe that it's there. So that's awesome. And so good observation. And actually thinking about it, you know, just on the very end of it. No, a little bit in the nose as I was taking it in too. Yeah, there's just a really, really fine layer, whoa, of pencil shaving. Wow, that's my reminder to move on. So we're not here for 4 hours today. So those of you that know me, wow, it could easily happen. So,
man, I love it.
All right, Abby.
Chuck, before we move into the next wine, we got a great question, which I think should be answered before we keep delving into the different vintages. And that is just when it comes to blending trials, what is that thought process to making blends each year that you, Raul and Dorian, use?
Yeah, well, it first starts out with just observing the fruit in the vineyard. And so start developing thoughts there and then making notes as we bring the fruit in, we see what kind of condition it is and the fermentation. We're always evaluating it as it's progressing. And then when it comes, and then we put it to barrel, we keep the lots separate. So when I say lots, the different lots of fruit. So we'll keep the, say the pleasant Cabernet Franc, we keep that separate from the Merlot for quite a while. And the reason why I do that, I want to learn how each lot evolves on its own, and so we can learn the vineyard itself more. So I, in the past, have tended to be a later blender, but as time goes on, I'm blending earlier and earlier. But we're always evaluating the wine. We look at it. So if the wine itself is, if it's a really nice vineyard or vintage, and the wine itself is worthy of 100% varietal bottling, we can blend a couple of different Merlots together, or maybe even just a 100% of that vineyard block. So, but it has to be worthy enough. The balance has to be there, the acidity, the tannins, the flavor, all of that. So we'll evaluate the different lots. We'll take all of them, we'll put them down in front of us, taste them individually, make notes, decide what we want to use for a base, if you will, and start blending trials, putting things together. If we feel like we need a little more acid, we might take a little of this Merlot block. If we need to feel like we soften it up and need a little more red berry character, well, we'll put some Cab Franc in there. So it's just an ongoing process, and sometimes they come together like that. Sometimes it takes 6 months, 9 months, you know. So it's a fun process, generally speaking. Sometimes it kicks our little behinds for a while and can be very frustrating, but that's the process. So there's no magic. It's just exploration, adventure, and using our senses, listening to the fruit, listening to the wines that we have in barrel, and putting the pieces together. It's kind of like a puzzle. And sometimes you think these two will go together well, but sometimes you get the cancel culture happening right in front of you with the wines. Wines will just sometimes, you think they'll make the perfect pairing and they'll just block each other out, and it would be awful. And sometimes you can take something that you don't think is going to blend well, and it gives it that extra complexity, and go, oh my gosh. But we, you know, with experience, we learn these things. So
And that is just to elaborate on that. That is the fun part when you get to learn, you know, pinpoint what the varietals bring to the table, and then specifically what that varietal from that vineyard. You know, when you start to really contribute in like, oh, this vineyard character, like us, you know, Merlot from this vineyard, you know, has more body, and Merlot from this vineyard is a little bit more floral, shows a little bit more acid. And so that's just been something for me, for something fun for me that I've been able to fine tooth comb over the past year or two, is really getting into vineyard specific, Seven Hills versus Pepper Bridge, Stillwater versus, you know, Sagemore. I mean, well, I don't know, no, not Sagemore anymore. But Weinbau, or
Bacchus, yeah.
just, you know, just going, that's probably been the more fun part for me over the past couple of years, is just really starting to fine point like vineyard characteristic, and then learning how to incorporate that aspect into the blending on top of everything else that we already look into.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, we'll go reach for a wine that we had no intended to originally bring to the mix, but you know, that particular year, oh man, you know, we just can't find the pieces in front of us, so we go back to the cellar and start looking for them. And
yeah, and that's what makes it fun. Like you said, like trying things that would maybe are untraditional. It forces you to be curious 24/7. It forces you to be the opposite of comfortable, because sometimes when you're comfortable, you can become complacent. And I don't think that's when your best work is being shown. So I really like how we're able to challenge ourselves, you, Raul, myself, and when we ask, you know, some of the taster people to come, hey, what do you think? It's fun to get everybody's thoughts, for sure.
all right. Shall we move on to the 2005?
Yes, so for everybody tasting along, we're going to jump to the 2005 Columbia Valley. We also sent some people a vineyard specific one, which we'll try as our third wine today. So the 2005 Columbia Valley Merlot, this one is 93% Merlot, 7% Cab Sauv. And this one is sourced from Bacchus, Clifton Hill, Finney Hill, and Sundance. So some of the same vineyards as that previous 03 vintage.
Yeah, so we talked about the Clifton Hill right by Millbrant Vineyard on the west side of the Wahluke Slope. In Sundance, we talked about that. Finney Hill, boy, I can actually tell the Finney Hill in the Bacchus. The Finney Hill is actually Cabernet Sauvignon that's in there, but the Bacchus, that's a Sagemore Bacchus Merlot. It's an old vineyard here in the state. Gosh, I want to say it's pushing, well, 35, 40 years old, and love the fruit from there. It's always our very first Merlot that we harvest, and it is usually intense with color, and also brings us more intense black cherry flavors from it. And you can detect that on the nose. I mean, if you look at the color, it's a little darker color, still not as brickish as the 2003, but it has a little bit more, just from the nose, I can sense more depth of fruit and a little more intensity of flavor. Man, so with this guy, I get, like I say, that black cherry, get a little bit of plum, actually kind of also heading toward a little bit of prune, a little currant, and I get a little hint of a little bit of vanilla on the nose too. So instead of getting like the last one, we're getting a little more of an Asian wood spice in there. And this one, the oak is giving us a little bit more hint of vanilla, and maybe even a tiny bit of caramel in there. So it's kind of fun. I'm trying to look at my other notes here, see if there's anything else that I got in there. So yeah, I'm actually, that's right. Last time, I remember it just hitting me in the nose with big kind of prune flavors, but prune and black cherry. This time around, it seems to be hitting me more with the black cherry, and the prune is almost secondary to the black cherry. But so fun stuff going on there. So again, the color, just looking at it, I can tell that it's probably holding up a little bit more than that 2003. So, yeah, a little bit more purple, dark purple in there. So, yeah, I'm getting a little bit of Kirsch going on there too. I really like the acidity in this. It seems focused, and it helps, even though it has a depth of fruit in there and gives it a certain density to it, that acidity makes it a little more lively and makes it a little more focused. And so, yeah, I like how this is definitely younger and has a little bit more vigor to it than the first one. So if I were just talking about these in general, I love the first one, the 2003, because of the age aspects of it. You definitely get a little bit more leather note, a little more soy and umami in there. This one, I'm getting a little more forward fruit, darker, denser fruit with a cherry. But the texture and mouthfeel of it's just nice, soft, wonderful tannins. And Dorian, take it away. What are your thoughts on there? And Abby, if you have some thoughts too that you'd like to throw in there too.
Definitely. I definitely get more, I agree with you on this one. This one is a little bit more youthful. I think that acid definitely makes it more fun. It kind of does. I get a little bit of plum on the finish. It's definitely on the softer side initially, but the finish is a little bit stronger than it starts for me. But when I say stronger, it's nothing like assertive or aggressive or anything like that. Like, meaning that it still gives me some body, which I like. But it's still approachable. So, I mean, in all, what I'm liking between the two of them so far is it's like structure has been consistent, in their own ways, in their own realms, but they're definitely, I appreciate them a lot more. And this one, I just get more fruit off this one. I mean, I get a little bit more plum on the darker fruit. And I kind of like that on the finish, when you kind of end with a little bit of fruit, the acid makes an appearance toward the finish too, which I also like. This is one that I see that you still have some time if you wanted to. I wouldn't go too long, but you still have some like playroom for like having fun of like, oh, let's drink one right now. And then let's see how this bad boy evolves.
I agree with you. If you want the wine a little more aged, like the 2003, I mean, this can certainly, you can hang on to this another 2, 3, maybe 5 years. I mean, the acid in it is nice enough that it can do it. And also there's just a tiny bit of, I agree with you on the finish too, right at the, what I call the corner of the mid palate to the finish, there's just a tiny bit of background tannin bitterness to me. I'm really sensitive to bitter. And so I'll get, just as it's turning the corner there to the finish, I get just a tiny bit of that. So, which tells me with that in the acid that it can actually cellar a little bit longer if you're looking for more cellar or more age in your wine. It certainly has, again, the 2003, I think for my palate anyway, it's a drink now. You're not going to get anything more out of it. It's going to just be losing more fruit. The 2005, your choice. I think it's wonderful right now, but you could also hang on to it for, maybe another, like say, 2 to possibly even 5 years. And so I'm really pleased, given that you can see that in the color of it too. So I'm pleased. Gosh, these things have really surprised the heck out of us. So we didn't think they were going to be these Merlots were going to be this durable, but they are. So. Yeah.
Chuck, you brought up a good question. And how long would you say is too long on a wine? Or when can you tell?
Well, I can only answer that for myself. But right now, like the 2003, we're really starting to get more of that umami in there, a little bit more soy character, a little more leather, and you start seeing that brickish color around the rim of the glass when you tilt it. And so there's a fine balance there. It's nice, it's wonderful getting those tertiary flavors that I just mentioned, but it's a balance of how much fruit you want. And if you want a little bit more fruit, well, you want a little earlier. But it gets to a point where there's the fruit just will be gone, and you're left with perhaps oak alcohol, maybe that soy umami thing, and there really isn't any fruit to really find in it. So, and therefore the balance of it seems to diminish. So that's what I look for. But you know, it all depends on how much of that quality you want in the wine. So yeah, that fruit, it starts changing, starts turning more towards like stew, canned fruit, and yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. But you know, learn for yourself. Yeah, trust yourself, trust your own palate. Don't go by what I like, because you know, I used to like my aging a little bit more forward. It's just that over the years, you know, my palate has changed with my age, and I don't want to say it's evolved. I mean, you can use that word, but I don't mean it as it's gotten better by any means. It's just that my preferences has changed as I've aged and my taste buds have changed. And so that's what it's all about. Find your niche, find out where you are in that spectrum, and stick to it. You know, but I encourage you to push the envelope. And that's part of the adventure and exploration process too. Because if you push the envelope, you say, you know, usually I like this a little bit more fruit forward, but I'm willing to try this and have another half glass of it anyway. And as you do that, you'll find that you start finding those flavors intriguing. But if you don't, hey, no big deal. Then you know where your fence is. So, all right. Other thoughts? Anybody want to jump in either through the chat room or verbal? All right. Well, with that, then I'm going to move on to another 2005 that we have, and take it away, Miss Abby.
So, well, this one I would say is actually a mystery to all of us, because we somehow over the years misplaced the 2005 Stillwater Creek Vineyard tasting notes. So it is vineyard specific from Stillwater Creek, which we're still sourcing from today.
Oh, wow.
I am unable to tell you what the blend is.
Well, Dorian, why don't you take it away? I might be able to help us out there. Let me see if I can dig in. I don't know if I have it in written records, but I might have it here on my computer. So
As far as like the wine or the vineyard, either one I can talk about.
anything you want to talk about, you go for it.
Well, definitely. This is the Stillwater Creek run, right, Abby? You said.
Yes. Yeah.
The Stillwater Creek Merlot. Yeah, definitely. This is a Merlot that I like. We like sourcing from Stillwater Creek in general. Obviously, we get a good amount of stuff from there, or we have in the past, but this one's showing a little bit more body to me than the Columbia Valley one. This is a little bit more assertive as of right now, but I do get a little bit more older wine characteristics on the nose than I did on the 05 Columbia. But this is one of those ones where this wine for me personally, this would be one that I would want to try now and later, because like I want to see how this thing moves along, because it has the body to continue on, to continue aging. And me personally, I've begun to favor more aged Merlots than I do younger Merlots. Merlot isn't one of my favorite varietals to begin with, but over the past year or two, I've really started to fall in love with aged Merlots and the aged wine characteristic that it brings to the table. And this Stillwater Creek 05 Merlot, this is one that I'm happy to drink right now. And then I want to see this bad boy laid down a little bit longer. I want to see what it's like when those tannins become a little bit more refined. Nothing's off-putting right now at all, but this is one of those ones I'm like, all right, cool, I got time for this one. Let's drink it now, let's drink it later. And I would want to take notes. I have to take notes consistently because I don't have that memory retention like Raul and like Chuck has, where they can pull, oh yeah, from 05, it tasted like this, and the year was like that. My brain isn't to that level. So I would like to drink this one now and take notes. And then when you open up the second bottle, refer to your initial notes and then take new ones all over again. And now we can compare and contrast and really figure out how do you like your wine? As Chuck was saying, like you got to find what you like. Wine is all personal preference and subjective. So it's really important to find out what you like, because you're going to be drinking and you're going to be paying for it. So you want to make sure it's something that you truly enjoy, because just because, you know, I might say I love it. Oh, thank you. Just because I might say I really love this one and you don't, like, two things can be true. It's okay. It's all personal preference. We've all grown up eating different foods and being exposed to different cuisines throughout our life. And also sometimes you could just have a bad tasting day too. So just kind of keep all those in consideration. But I'm liking how this Merlot is as far as right now.
And I'm going to jump in here with just a short note that I had from Raul. When we tasted this at the beginning of the month, on the nose, he was getting a ton of umami. And thought like the color was still pretty spot on for how old the 2005 Stillwater Creek Vineyard was. He picked up on a little brininess. He said like maybe a little bit salty.
You talking on the nose?
Notes, I would agree. I was getting a lot of mineral notes. I also like almost like this dusty potpourri nose for me. Darker black cherry. I was getting a lot of molasses, and, you know, tasting it today, I would agree. I'm still on this like molasses note.
That's right. We had spoke on that, and that's why there's some days where you're in a zone, like when you're tasting everything, you know, and that's why it's important to have those tasting notes, because some days you have good tastings, and so it's nice that you have those notes there, Abby, since I don't have my tasting notebook from that day. So thank you for elaborating on that.
Yeah, and since you don't, the notes that I wrote down for you was that you were really digging the tannins, and you were getting tons of sun-dried tomatoes on the nose of it.
Yeah, I really like this wine. The Columbia Valley was definitely a little bigger, like say, had more depth of dark fruit in it. But for me, this wine is really classy, really elegant. I think it has some real nice refinement to it. The acid really helps focus the fruit in there. Looking back on my notes, by the way, Abby, I couldn't find that, but we know it's 100% Stillwater Creek. I did pick up, it's 91% American oak and 18% new oak on there. I was able to find that note somewhere. But anyway, I recall the big thing that hit me was that molasses, that cherry, macerated cherries and molasses. So the last time, and I definitely get it again now on the nose too, and plum and cassis. Abby, you mentioned the potpourri. I agree with you, and I kind of get a potpourri with kind of violet emphasis in there, some fig, really nice. I think the oak is just integrated so beautifully into this wine. And and I also get a tiny bit of the beginnings of umami. So again, umami is that somewhat newer taste that we get on our palate. It goes along with bitter, sweet, tart or acid on it. What am I looking at? Umami and what's the one that I'm missing here? Salt. So those are things that we actually taste on our tongue. Everything else are the volatiles that rise from our palate up into our olfactory, which is up in our nasal cavity here. So all those fruit flavors, everything else we detect up there. So, so to me, the umami factor is just beginning in this wine. And so far where we've seen the most of it is in the 2003. And there's just a really beautiful silky layer of oak spice, just integrated and melded with the tannins so beautifully. To me, this wine just shows the most elegance of the three wines that we've tasted so far. And I think the finish is really nice, long focus, drawn out cherry on it. And you know, so the 2005 has more fruit impact. There's no question about it. But for my style of wine, there's just a nice, oh gosh, I can just lay back and enjoy the cruise and the scenery on this, and but it's still heightened. So that acid in there just gives it a really nice heightenedness to it all. It just brings everything, like I say, kind of a little more laser focus. So that's my take on the Stillwater Creek. I just, the tannin structure, the balance between the tannins and the acid, yummy. Man, does anybody else have this wine with them?
Yeah,
So-
there are a few people. Deb Peters says she's getting vanilla, balsam, and black cherry on the nose. Let's see,
I like the balsam.
fruits on the
yeah.
palate. Kellen is really picking up on the pronounced tannins, and he was saying that he thought it was wild before you mentioned salt, because that's what he was also tasting and didn't really realize that was something like in the wine, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I even get a little bit more of like celery salt, to be specific. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just for me personally, towards the finish, but just to elaborate on what he was saying.
Yep, celery salt, a little bit of celery seed, absolutely. I agree with that completely.
Chuck and Dorian, like doing this side by side, what would you say are the big difference that you're picking up on? I know we kind of talked about them individually, but Columbia Valley versus Stillwater Creek, what are your thoughts?
Columbia Valley is, I kind of alluded to earlier, it's to me, it's a more depth of fruit. It's even though it's not huge in your face, it's a little more in your face kind of, it's just bigger, if you will. But I think the Stillwater Creek is more focused, more elegant. And I love the texture of it. It's a little silkier. Remember I talked about turning the corner there between the mid palate and the finish on the Columbia Valley. You get a little bit more of that tiny hint of bitter tannin. This wine right now, the Stillwater Creek, I think it's going to be really beautiful when it ages, but I really like it right now. If I'm just thinking, okay, I want a little bit more fruit in my wine, this is where I'm going to go, because I think this stylistically, it's right on right now. So it's not going to get better than this as far as the fruit goes. You're going to start getting more. It's going to start heading in the direction of that 2003. I think stylistically, the 2003 is more similar to the Stillwater Creek Merlot. So with a little bit more time, the Stillwater Creek Merlot is going to tend to be a little bit more like the 2003. So that's my take on it. I love it right now. And so, yeah, another drink now, but you can certainly hold it, if you will. It will certainly go for a good another 5 years, no problem. So.
Yeah, I like both of them right now for different reasons. They're their own beast in their own respective form. And just for where I'm at right now in my palate, I like them both right now. And then I want to see the Stillwater Creek again down the road, because I want to see what it's like when that just becomes more refined. I don't think we're getting the best. Well, hold on. I want to see what it shows when it has true aged Merlot character. Mm-hmm. That's what I truly want to see. I feel like for me personally, that's the stamp of time. I want to see, how do you hold anything could be great when it's young, but it's sustainability. Like, how great are you down the line, right? So I want to.
Sorry.
I want to, but either way, I like them both right now. But then the one I'd want to drink down the line would be the Stillwater Creek, just because I just want to see. I feel like I'm not going to get more fruit from it, but I just want to see more of the old wine characteristic, how it presents itself. That's just where I stand on.
The Columbia Valley has more power to it. It's a more powerful Merlot, where the Stillwater Creek is just showing more elegance and more smoothness. It's just oh gosh, I don't know. I kind of think of Temptations, real nice and smooth. So yeah.
Oh gosh, man.
I think I visualize
I love it. No, I love it. I'm just
That's what
happy
we listened
that
to when I was a
people,
kid growing up, you know?
yeah, it's just one, yeah, just your imagination. It's cool that the thing that I like about this is like it's literally a sneak preview into how we taste. Like it's cool that we have all the our customers here because you literally get an inkling into what we do when we have these things. The banter, the jokes, it's like part of the experience, man.
Well, I see something there from Debbie Peters. Really awful to love wine. Yeah, it
Tough
is.
life.
It
Tough life.
is. Your thoughts, people?
I mean,
Anybody?
Denise loves the Temptations too, you know, so shout out to Denise loving the Temptations like Chuck, you know?
Yeah. Try to make a little bit more room here. All right. We got more wine coming in. So yeah, who's our tasting room associate working today, and she just keeps bringing me wine, and I'm sure she's bringing you guys wines too. So
I'll just say, I don't have the sophisticated palate and nose that you guys have, and I hear all these flavors and spices and notes and everything, and I go, really, it smells like red wine to me.
Oh man.
Putting the 03, and we have the 03 and the 05 Stillwater, and if I put them next to each other, yeah, I can see the color differences, partly because you're tutoring. You can smell the difference. In general, though, I like Dorian's comment about not really being a Merlot guy or something, but now you're sort of changing your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
And me sampling these two makes me want to drink more Merlot, and especially the Reiniger Merlot. And you've done the same thing. I'll throw in a plug here for the Chardonnay that we've gone through 2 cases of, because it's, Chardonnay went, oh, everybody drinks Chardonnay, you know, any Chardonnay. Well, we're drinking a lot of it because you guys are putting out such a good product. Anyway, I just wanted to throw those notes in there that I don't have all the nuances, but this is like really good.
Very nice.
well, I'm gonna touch on your Merlot about Merlot, that comment that you made, you know, in general about Merlot, and it's something I did want to say, probably more for the closing, but I might forget. No, Merlot it's an incredible grape, and it really deserves a lot more attention than it's getting in the wine world now. It's starting to come back, you know, that awful movie Sideways, actually an awful movie. But you know, it really deserves a lot of respect, especially when we can grow the kind of Merlot that we do here, the right bank of Bordeaux, and here in Washington, and particularly I think here in Walla Walla Valley. But the Eastern Washington and the right bank of Bordeaux are the 2 best places for growing Merlot in the world. And so I'm really glad that, I mean, you guys just tasting these wines, I mean, you can see that it deserves its own place in the bottle. So thank you for bringing that and reminding me to say something about it. So, somebody, a comment just disappeared that I missed. Did you happen to catch that, Abby?
Maybe Dana agreed that Sideways totally ruined Merlot.
Oh.
And that he's always really liked
numbers to back
Merlot.
that too. There's sales numbers to back of that movie. After that movie came out, Merlot sales like started to go down. It was crazy. Either way, sorry, Abby.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, that's fine. And, you know, I also want to make a plug too that, like you, Dorian, I would say that like, it's taken me a long time to appreciate Merlots. Out of all of the grapes, Merlot and Cabernet Franc have been the ones that like I've struggled with the most. So if there's a grape or wine you don't really like when it's young, maybe just try the older wines, because that's what Merlot is like for me. I've realized that like I really appreciate and love older Merlots. So today this has been amazing. But once it gets pretty young, to me, I really struggle with it.
Yeah.
And speaking, Merlot in general is a little more, it's softer tannic wise than Cabernet, but you get a good Merlot vintage and it can often be mistaken for Cabernet Sauvignon. And some of the most sought after wines, I know we mentioned it before, Petrus, Right Bank wines, Pomerol and Saint Emilion. I mean, some of the most sought after wines in the world, fetching some vintage, I mean, probably more vintages than not, more per bottle than any other wine in the world. And it's mostly Merlot, maybe has a little Cab Franc and or Cab in it, but that says something right there. And so the French don't put they don't put Merlot on the bottle, they put Pomerol, and that's a region. So one is expected to know that Pomerol, that's Merlot based wines. So that's how the French, it's all about the place, it's not about the grape per se, but that's what they grow there. So all right, 2006, let's go into that. Abby, please.
Yeah, so 2006, this one is 89% Merlot. So if I'm correct, this is the lowest amount of Merlot we've tasted so far today, and 11% Cabernet Sauvignon. The vineyard sourcings sound pretty similar to that 05 Columbia Valley with Bacchus, Clifton Hill, Finney Hill, but this one has Stillwater Creek in it.
Yeah. All right, man. It's got good, good clarity to it. It's garnet color, so it tells me that it's, turning the corner on the age anyway. Looking back in my notes, but also what I'm getting right now, I'm actually, when I tasted it a week and a half ago, I kind of got a nice little blast of cocoa and chocolate going in there. It's not quite as pronounced to me today, but it's certainly there. And I get a little bit of, again, violet and potpourri going on there. Man, oh man, I see something here, scratch that I can't read.
I even get like a little bit of like petals. Sorry, more so on the taste. I get like flower petals, like
Yeah, well, that's what potpourri is dried flowers. And so you're getting like, I don't know, for me it's more violet, maybe a hint of rose petal in there. But got some really nice dark fruit and plum happening in there. And the black cherry is more pronounced to me underneath that kind of cocoa aspect that I was getting. And get some fig, I get just a hint of sun-dried tomato also in the background going on in this. And I get the start of umami. I'm just starting to get a hint of, there's a little umami going on in there. It's not quite soy, it hasn't turned to soy, but I'm definitely getting that nice savory umami kind of thing going on.
Oh, and then since we're kind of talking about the nose, I do want to bring up, Chuck and I have talked about this in the past, how vigorous you smell the wine can change what your nose picks up. So like
the velocity.
But yeah, velocity, sorry.
Yeah,
the velocity of it. Sorry. Because for me, I have to, if I try to inhale too intense, I can't pick up the layers, I can't. I have to go slow at first, where it's like a steady inhale. And that's when I'm able to pick up more from the nose. And then once I do try to be more vigorous with the inhale, like breathing through my nose, then I'm able to pick up other things also. So that's a trick that I've learned from me personally, over, the years of tasting with Chuck is, if you're not able to pick up everything, that's okay. Just like write down what you can, try at different increments of the velocity that you are smelling, and you might be able to pick up different things. So I just wanted to bring that up because there's times when we're doing these tastings, I don't get everything that Chuck gets, just how the Peters had mentioned. I'm not getting everything that even Chuck gets, right? It is what it is. But you still have to be comfortable in what you do, like searching for, maybe if you can't be more broad with your terms initially, maybe like I'm getting dark fruit versus bright fruit. And then you can start to fine tooth comb what is dark fruit, what is bright fruit. And then you can start figuring out the nuances of those specific tastes.
Thanks for bringing it up. It's really important because we are in the nose, you're getting the volatiles. Okay. So when things warm up, you get more volatiles. If it's too warm, all the volatiles are gone. So when I begin tasting, I like to start off with really soft, gentle velocity, just because there's certain volatiles anyway that will escape. If you take a big hit, if you will, with the nose, high velocity, you may be taking things out of the volatiles, the real delicate volatiles, the more volatile things, out of the glass, and they go right by you. And so I like to start off with, I mean, barely perceptible inhalation, inhaling at all. And you get different things, just what Dorian was saying. So every, different velocities, you'll get different things in the nose. So play around with that. And all these things apply, just not to wine, but to foods, that you eat too. So, and create that taste memory. And that will help you when you start concentrating on developing a taste memory, when you go hiking, or a smell memory. You go hiking, on your walks, the foods you eat, just, start creating that memory, that category, cataloging in your brain. And the more you do it, the better observer you will become, and you'll be able to start pulling those things out and saying, oh yeah, I recognize that as gooseberry or thimbleberry or something like that. Just real esoteric things that are spot on, that but that you've experienced sometime in your life somewhere. So
well, and it's kind of cool. It's nice to even have somebody, it's nice to have another person for a soundboard, because like one of the things Chuck and I noticed, well, more so Chuck, when we tasted these however long ago, anytime I get anise or licorice, Chuck, he picks up Asian spice. Yeah. And so Chuck is like, I've noticed that over just us tasting in general over the past year. Anytime I pick up anise, aniseed, licorice, Chuck is like, I get Asian spice. And so it's kind of fun just to kind of see how certain people just perceive certain characteristics.
And I brought that example up actually a couple times in the last week. I mentioned that Dorian, he's really sensitive to anise and licorice. And I mentioned that while tasting with some other people this week. And I mentioned that. And I mean, I get anise a lot of times in the wines, and but Dorian's very sensitive to it, and he definitely finds it for me. So.
Well, and that's also the fun thing too of like tasting with Raul. When you have other palates that you're taking into consideration, you're understanding like, okay, like had Chuck mentioned earlier, he's sensitive to the wines getting bitter. So we know when it's just things to take into consideration, right? Like one person, Chuck's like, is this bitter to me? Am I tasting bitter? Is it just me? Are you guys getting it? And it's just kind of cool.
It's funny. I'll walk in on Dorian and Raul tasting something, and they'll pass it to me, and they'll ask me my comments, and the first thing's out of my mouth, all of a sudden they just start bursting out laughing, and because that's what they said, I will say. We get to know each other's palates.
Yeah.
And so.
Oh man, and that's fun, right? You take into consideration of what Chuck tastes more often. You take in consideration what our customers want or expect from each label, right? When you bring all those things in, I wish you guys knew how fun it is, and then B, how much we care. I mean, I don't know how to describe it to you. I don't. I really don't. I don't know how to tell you how it makes me feel to work on this, to work on things like this. I don't know how to describe it. So it's cool that you guys get to see the behind the scenes stuff on what we do when you're not
It is fun. We need to kind of keep it rolling a little bit.
Yeah, we do.
though.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. And one of the things that I feel about this wine, to me, it's a little blockier. It needs a little bit more further to go with the integration on it, but still is compared to other wines that we've had. But it's still, I mean, it's still really nice. So, you know, it has a really kind of a, I think, medium plus acidity to it. I really get some nice dark cherry on it, but lively cherry. And I'd just like to see a little more integration overall, but it's still a beautiful wine. I get kind of a very fine hint of maybe like when you open up a bag of roasted coffee, not real dark roasted, but roasted coffees that are a little nuttier anyway. I get a little bit of that going on in there. So yeah, gosh, I see that here in the back of my bottom of my notes here from a couple weeks ago that it lacks complete integration right now at this point. So this is a wine I'd still, for myself anyway, would still age another year or another 2 or 3 years anyway. I put down in here drink in 18 months. I want to see this again in 18 months, darn it. So, but it has some really nice aspects to it. I think right towards the finish, kind of that corner between mid palate and finish, it's still get lots of fruit, but it's not quite as intense maybe as some of the others there.
No.
Going into the finish.
And that's what I wanted to say is, like, you know, as we're getting, it's interesting because we're getting younger by the wine, but this, I feel like the fruit intensity took a step back on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why these things are fun, because you would just assumption would be like, oh, they're going to get fruity and fruitier the younger we get. And I think the 06 is a perfect example of like, not so much. So I definitely agree with you there. It tapers off on the fruit.
Yeah, it's still a really nice wine. But yeah, I agree with you. I think on this one, it's just the vintage, it just doesn't have the flavors are all there. It's just not quite as intense. And
no, and so that's what makes me feel more comfortable aging this one, because seeing how we're not getting that much fruit already where it's at, like, then I feel like you're not, how much are you really losing from the fruit when you're aging it, right? Like maybe you're going to enhance some of the other characteristics that can outshine the fruit, since we're not getting that much already, you know? So
yeah, and well, I'm afraid if holding on to this one too long though, that there's not enough fruit there to sustain itself. If that makes any sense. So that's why I say 18 months, I think, will be a really good test for it. And if it's integrated and not quite as the little bit of angular aspects going on in there, where everything's not quite flowing 100% together. But like I say, it's still a beautiful wine. I mean, it's not anything to sneeze at whatsoever. It's just that we've been having some really nice Merlots here. And I can't emphasize enough how much this tasting, you know, it makes me so happy. It makes all of us so happy to see what our labors have become over the years. And so we're all actually more pleasantly surprised than we expected. So
real quick, Chuck, Deb Peters mentioned, like, is it the vintage or is it just less pure Merlot? And I think what she's trying to ask is, like, is it getting less fruit because of the vintage, or is it less fruit because of the varietal? Does it make sense what I'm at? What?
Yeah, I would say it's more the vintage. Well,
yeah. I say vintage.
I think all of 2006 is a little bit more like this. And you know, some years are better for other varietals, but it's still very good. I mean, if I were to put this in a blind tasting with other Merlots from around the world, I mean, it's still going to be, you know, it's going to be in the top 80% probably for that vintage. I mean, it's there. It's a good wine. There's a lot going on there. So, but we've just been having some really nice wines.
Yeah.
All right. Are there other comments? Anybody want to unmute and speak up or chat?
We do have another question, Chuck, and this is just more in general. How long would you recommend breathing a library wine?
Good question. And also that goes to decanting too. So the older it is, like that 2003, I would try to get a couple hours, generally speaking, on these, on all of these wines. The younger it is, the more vigorous you can be when you decant it. 2003, if you were to decant it, I would question myself whether I would decant it or not. What I would probably do more than anything else, if I had a little more prescient, go in my cellar, turn it upright, and let it sit for a couple of days upright. And then the night of the dinner, bring it up, 4 or 5 hours before the dinner, go ahead, open it up, or an hour or 2, 3 hours before, and just let it breathe. Take the cork out, have a quick little sip of it, put the cork back in, and just let it breathe for a while. If you wanted to decant it, do it very, very gently, because those volatiles are getting close to the point, one pour and they're gone. With the younger wines like this 2006, you don't have to be so gentle on the pour. I wouldn't be super rough, but like a brand new wine that we just bottled, a couple of months ago, you might even put your hand over the top or put the glass over the top of the decanter and actually literally shake it up, splash it a lot, get a lot of air to it. So I would definitely not, I wouldn't be gentle, but I wouldn't be rough with decanting this wine. So like the 2003s would. So, but all of them, open up, at least an hour or 2 or 3 before, if you can. You're always going to get, most of the time you're going to get more satisfaction out of the wine if you can do that.
And how much does decanting impact the flavor?
A lot. So like I was talking about, how vigorous you do. Remember, we're talking about the volatiles. So volatiles will come off the surface of the wine, a function of temperature. So the warmer it is, the more volatiles get released, and also vigor. So if we're shaking the wine up, you're going to get more volatiles released. So that's why particularly with the older wine, we take those real slow, gentle velocity sniffs of it, and then move on to the more vigorous velocity, so we don't miss things. And but wine will always do better warming up from cellar temperature to room temperature, because as it warms, it's going to be giving off more volatiles. And it's fun when you do that. As the evening progresses, it's fun to see how the wine changes and how it evolves, because you'll get different flavors at the beginning when you first pour, versus maybe an hour later, you're sitting around chatting with your guests, and you're contemplating that aperitif and dessert. But yet you have a little bit left in that decanter or in the bottle, and you pour it and you go, oh my God, it's a whole nother world. And it's so cool. So take your time, rush it. And, we've lost touch. World War II helped us lose touch. We were scarfing our food down, wondering where we might get our next can of green beans or something, and but when you just sit back and enjoy your meal and enjoy your wines, enjoy the world and enjoy what the vintage has given us through the fruit. That's and seeing how it changes. I mean, we change as we age, so does the wine, and it changes on your table too as it's opening up. So celebrate it, embrace it, celebrate it. You might not always find something that is attractive, but boy, you'll also find things that are attractive. So But it's
Yeah,
different
if you
all
can't
through.
celebrate that, but just to elaborate, sorry to cut you off, Chuck.
No,
If you're
no,
not able
not at
to
all. Go for it.
celebrate it wholeheartedly, find something to appreciate. Like that's what made me fall in love with Merlot specifically over the past like 14, 18 months is like, all right, man, I was tired of just not being in love with it. And I just had to shift my perspective. It's like, all right, dog, like if you don't love X, Y, and Z, do you love A, B, and C? What about, do you like ST? Like, do you like elemental P about the wine? Like find something you can favor about the wine, because then once you find something that a characteristic you like, your whole perspective on the varietal changes. Because now instead of searching for the things or encountering the things you don't like, you're now searching for a specific thing you do like. And it makes it fun all over again.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll find a wine that just has this, I mean, it's so earthy dominant that it might be offensive at first, to the nose and maybe even to the palate. But gosh, after it's opened up for maybe an hour or two, man, all of a sudden it just
Game
turns into
changer.
something.
So Chuck, I have a question for you to butt in here. Is there a certain age where you feel like then, like you shouldn't be decanting wines this long? Just because, like, you know, reading books like Billionaire's Vinegar, which is talking about wines from like 1800s, like some of that stuff, you open that bottle, it might taste great for that first second, and then immediately everything.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That oftentimes the more delicate in the age the wine is, sometimes you only have one pour, and you don't. And if this all comes from experience, you don't want to waste that pour on the decanter. You know, you want to get it. So that comes from experience. And again, you know, the more you can buy multiple bottles, whether it be 2, 3, a half case, a case, so you can taste the wine through its evolution. The more wines you can do that with, the more experience and more feeling, and you'll be able to tune it to your preferences too. Not mine, not Dorian's, not Abby's, but you fine tune it to yours, and you'll get more and more sense. And it takes years to develop that. There's no question about it. But you know, that's part of us growing older and you know, gaining wisdom, and it's the joy of growing older, not just the wines, but you know, our knowledge and how we approach things. And we don't necessarily have to be in such a rush all the time. So you know, we don't need instant gratification. We can sit back and just enjoy life as it happens, as it unfolds before us. And that's how wine is too. So yeah, embrace it, cherish it. Okay, any other comments, Abby? Is it time to move on?
I think time to move on, and I'll save the next questions for our next kind of break.
Okay.
So the next wine that we have in front of us is the 2008 Stillwater Creek Merlot. This one is 100% Merlot, 100% Stillwater Creek.
All right.
Man, in the 2000, I mean, just a little side note, the 2020 Stillwater Creek Merlot is tasting mighty fine. We just racked it, or we just did some tastings on it, I should say, earlier in the week. And I'm super excited for I know we're talking about older wines and stuff right now, but boy, oh boy, this 2020 vintage, Raul and I have been doing some tastings. We've shown Chuck some stuff, but the Stillwater Creek Merlot is one that's like, you know, tasting pretty good right now. So it's nice to see it's a consistent, you know, vineyard. We obviously favor the Stillwater Creek Merlot and the Sagemore Merlot a lot for different reasons. But it's nice just to kind of see it 12 years old on its own.
Man, oh man. You know, this kind of, again, on this guy, you know, I'm hitting some really nice dark cherry molasses notes hanging on there, and plum, and start getting a little cassis. Cassis is black currant liqueur. And so I get a little bit of that in there. Again, a little bit more violet and fig. Okay. I'm liking where this wine is going. It has depth of fruit to it. Just a little bit of umami starting to get going in it too. That umami is kind of, again, soy or right now it's more savory to me. And it just melds beautifully with the dark fruit that's going on in here. And the nose, I was getting just a hint of coconut in there too. So the tannins in there, they're round, but there's just a tiny bit of grippiness to it.
Yeah.
For me,
Yeah.
it's fun. When I was younger, getting into wines, I wanted that round, really soft, plush pillow, soft tannins and stuff. But as I become more of a curmudgeon, I actually appreciate a little bit of grip. I like the silky tannins too, but I also appreciate the fine tannins with a little bit of grip in it. And I'm really enjoying that in this wine. And with time, that's also going to mellow out and become a little softer. But there's a little bit more power going on in this wine. It's kind of taking me back towards that 2005 Columbia Valley. And so,
With
man,
the fruit, how much fruit is showing and how much tannins are presenting itself? Is this one that you would feel comfortable aging again? Like,
oh,
definitely.
absolutely. But I'm really
Yeah.
enjoying it now too, for the tannin structure. But yeah, I'm gonna love watching this guy, turn into an old lady or old man.
Yeah,
It's
because for how assertive, I like how assertive the tannins are considering how old it is, but it's not to the point to where it's like off-putting. Like it's not out of bounds. You know what
yeah,
I'm
and it's
saying?
not
So
as blocky as the 2006 was.
yeah, no,
There's just different parts where there's this part and this part of my palate. There's this part over here.
mhm.
This overall it's more powerful, but it just envelops the whole palate. But yet it has that fine, grippy tannin to it that's fun. There's enough acid in there to give that depth, that dark fruit depth in there, bring it up to the forefront, lift it a little bit, give it a little bit of liveliness, but yet it still has that depth of fruit and the black. There's a little bit of black currant going on in there. With the plum and black cherry. So yeah, this is going to be a fun one to watch age a little bit. And still, look at this. This is a 2008 Merlot. When I first started getting into wine, Washington wines or Washington Merlot only lasts 3 or 4 years. Bull doo-doo. My son on Monday turned 23, and we opened up a bottle of 1997 Merlot, our first Merlot that we produced. And that was the year he was born, and it is gorgeous. It's a Reininger Merlot, and it's still gorgeous. I still have about 3/4 of a case of it at home, but I'm drinking it now. It needs to be consumed, so I might keep one bottle. But I mean, that wine, just think of it, that's 23 years old, and it is Merlot and it is aging beautifully. And this is a 2008, 12 years old. It still has plenty of cellar time left.
Oh yeah.
So don't be fooled. This is what I say, listen to yourself. And the more you taste and do things like this, the more experience you're going to have, and the more you'll be able to ascertain these things on yourself and trust your own judgment for your palate. And so yeah, gosh, that's cool, man. It's just, I can see the focus in there, but it still needs to focus a little bit more. That acidity helps to focus this fruit. But gosh, yeah, 5 years from now, I have a date. So we're gonna taste this wine 5 years from now. And
Yeah, you definitely got time.
happy
You
with it.
definitely got time. That's for sure.
Yeah. See if there's anything else in my old notes here that,
Well, Chuck, while you look up those notes, I have Raul's comments because he's
Ooh,
not.
let's hear him.
This was his favorite wine out of the flight that we did.
You know what's crazy is that's not surprising. Before you jump into what he says, just knowing Raul, that's not surprising that this is his favorite one, because he's always like, I like my wine macho. I like assertive, big tannin. So it's not crazy that he said that this one is his favorite one. It sounds like Raul.
Yeah, so his comments were very good tannins, that chewy, good color, very good wine, that it was present from beginning to end, that he really liked the oak, he liked the fruit, he felt that it was holding on really well, and that he liked everything about it.
yep.
I'd say the most negative thing he said was, it's not offensive.
Well, you know, it's funny you said, because I have a Raul quote here in my notes too, and that is that it's beautiful from any angle.
Oh, yes.
I concur with that, and so there's just like it's fun. There's lots of stuff going on in the palate all over, and so like I say, 5 years from now, the aging of it, we all agree that this is one of our favorite wines, and it's just, you know, hang on, the story is
It's not
we
finished.
haven't gotten to the last chapter anyway.
Nah, it's definitely not over.
Yeah. All right. Next one. Gosh, we are going longer. I said we'd be out of here in an hour. Oh, God. I'm such a dirt bag, man. I try, you guys, but I'm having too much fun, obviously. I hope you are too. So, do we have one more wine here, Abby? Oh, here it is.
So we're on to the 2009.
Yes, our last wine, I think. Isn't this our last wine?
It is, yes.
Yes, I found it over here. I didn't realize that, yes, it snuck into my office here, and
So 09 for everybody. This one was also a 100% Merlot, and even though the label says Columbia Valley, we realized that this is also 100% Stillwater Creek.
Look at Stillwater Creek just showing out today. Showing up and showing out. Stillwater Creek.
it is.
And let me just jump right in with Raul's, because I know I missed his comments on a couple of the other wines. So he felt this one had really good color and tannins, that it was balanced with the acid. He got almost like a dusty oak, but more oak characteristics than all the previous wines that we had tasted.
Yeah, I'm getting just kind of a real, in the background, a little Chambord kind of aspect to it. So Chambord is a beautiful, beautiful black liqueur with some special spice notes in it, and maybe even just a hint of hazelnut with it. But my first impression too is a little, just from the nose, that I feel like when I get it on my palate, introduce it to my palate, there's going to be a little kind of chalky texture to it. And so there's some real nice dark, dry fruit on the nose with plum and blackcurrant. You know, again, that's that Chambord stuff going on there, and some fig, little baked fig, and I get a little bit, I don't know, like shavings of coconut, you know, coconut meat. And I'm not talking about the candy coconut that you buy in the store and sprinkle on your cupcakes. You know, I'm talking about real fresh, you know, fresh coconut. So yeah, I really see some really fun things going on. And the color too, you got this nice dark garnet color on this. And 2009 was a really nice vintage. It was kind of reminiscent of 1999 in some ways, as far as degree days go. 1999 was, gosh, a winemaker's dream. It was actually cool spring, cool summer, And when, as far as Merlot goes, I remember being afraid that if we were even going to be able to ripen Merlot. And then we had an Indian summer about the 3rd week of August. Mother Nature just turned on the heat, and man, it was, and ripened everything. We just real consistent, like 80-degree heat through harvest, and just beautiful wine. Well, 2009 was, I think, almost as nice as 1999 for Merlot. So we have some real deep depth of fruit, dark fruit in here. I'm getting a little bit of, again, that potpourri violet aspect, and all these wines, that you hear me saying that a lot, but it's the same vineyards, and there's, those aspects are coming through. So.
Well, and I think it circles back to what I was kind of like, pitter-pattering about earlier, about those vineyard characteristics, how certain vineyards can just amplify like certain aspects to the wine, like, and that's definitely noticeable. And when we try to blend, we like I said earlier, we take that into consideration. If there's a specific vineyard that has a characteristic that we favor more than other, we want that to become an attribute or a characteristic. And then just learning how to come to terms with what a vineyard characteristic is, and just learning how to work with it, right? Because there's times where we have no choice.
And that's why we haven't blended early over the years. So this, to me, really, it reminds me, and I believe it's going to become what that 2005 Stillwater Creek was. So, it's going to mellow out a little more of that fruit's going to drop off. Right now, it's got some big, bold fruit, some nice depth of fruit to it. The tannins are still medium firm in there, a little bit of grip. The acid is really nice on it. It's got that floral potpourri and the little bit of wood spice happening to it. Yeah, to me, it says Stillwater Creek to me. And, there's a little bit of a layer of blackberry going on in there too, on my palate. And like I say, I get a little bit of that Chambord stuff going on in the background on it too. So I'm really looking forward. I'm enjoying this as a young, more aggressive wine, if you will. I'd say young. It's still, 11 years old, but it still has, can round out some more. If you like, a little bolder Merlots and stuff, go for this one. I mean, this is definitely, and pardon the expression, it's a little more masculine. But with time, another, 5-6 years, it's going to be very elegant. The acid's there. The fruit is there to sustain itself, through another 5 years of aging, no problem. And yeah, but yet it's fun now. It's a little more aggressive. It's probably the most aggressive as far as fruit and tannins that we've had so far. But things are integrated. It's not blocky. It's not chunky. There's a little bit of chalkiness to it, but that's going to mellow with time too. So, but all in all, it's really balanced well. I'm trying to look down my notes. I should have brought my glasses today. I had to make a little more effort to read things, but yeah, I put down here, drink now through 2025 anyway is where I'm looking for it. I put down age 3 years to get more of the silkiness to it, but it might even take 5 years, from what I'm tasting today, to start achieving a little bit more of that silkiness on it. So.
And then Abby, did you have, by chance, I know we kind of all had our favorites listed.
Yeah. So do you guys want to hear what the favorites were back at the beginning of December?
I mean,
well, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Or do you want us to go through and give our favorites right now and see how they change?
I think either way. Maybe let's go with what we originally thought back at the beginning of the month and compare it to today.
All right.
Okay. So I guess I'll start with myself. So my favorite was that 03, kind of going back to that. I appreciate the Merlots.
Mm.
And then my second favorite was the 08 Stillwater Creek. And then my third was the 05 Stillwater Creek. And then I went to the 09, the 06, and then the 05 Columbia Valley, which, as a spoiler alert, I've actually been ranking mine today, and mine are the exact same.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Surprised that. I didn't think they would be, but they are. Raul, his favorite was that 08. His second favorite was the 03. Then he went to the 09, the 06, the 05 Stillwater Creek, and then the 05.
Okay.
Okay.
I remember that surprised me, the 05 Stillwater Creek. But anyway.
Okay, so let's jump down to Dorian. Dorian, you had a lot of ties. So your number one was tied with the 08 and the 05 Stillwater Creek.
That's what I have right here. Okay, that's good to know. Okay.
Then your official second place was the 09.
Wow, I ranked
Then
it
you
lower
had
today.
a tie pretty much between the 03 and the 06, but you decided the 03 kind of squeaked away a little bit more into an official third spot.
Yeah, because today I had I agree. The only one I had like swapped off that was like off was the 09. The 09 dropped more today than it did when we did our tasting. And that was the only reason why I was disheartened, because I was I'm not a naturally gifted taster like Raul and Chuck. So it's like when I have my good days, that's why I take notes so much, because I have to I'm on fire today. You can't stop me. And I just couldn't find my book today. It was so disheartening, like scrambling the last 30 minutes searching for it today. So literally as I'm tasting them today, I'm like, what do we think? And it's cool to hear. I think that's why notes are important. I think that's why taking notes are important, because it can help you along your journey of when you have a day like today, which isn't my strongest day, versus when I had a day like when we were taking notes and I was machismo. I was confident, unlike, right now I'm like, but this is how I feel.
Tasting, it's just a photograph in time, because the wines do change and our palates change. What we taste in our palate changes from day to day. It will depend on what we ate yesterday, what our body chemistry is doing this day. And some days, hey, it's just not there. And it's just a fact. And it's really evident when you're tasting the same off-putting things in every single wine that you taste. And also, we've set up tastings and just go, forget it. We got to redo this another time, because I'm tasting the same things in every single wine, and I don't like that. And it happens more frequently than you think.
Super humbling.
But it's, again, learning your palate and learning when you're on and when you're off, and learning what foods will cause those conditions for you. It's another cool thing about the world of wine, and being in tune with ourselves and with the glass of wine. So it is just a photograph in time.
Well, and that's what I like about with wine. The more honest you are with yourself, the more improvement you'll truly see. Because it's so, because I never drank wine before I started working at Reininger. So I've only had wine since I've been here, right? Obviously throughout other establishments and, throughout the state and wherever, but it's easy to discredit yourself. You got to find what you like. You got to find what works for you. And then you have to be honest, because I look at wine like the alphabet. If I'm working my way through the alphabet, and if Chuck comes to me, hey, Dorian, how comfortable are you with the alphabet? And because I know who Chuck is, I say, hey, Chuck, I'm good until elemental P. And he helps me with the rest of the alphabet. Now, I'm solid from the rest of the alphabet moving forward from elemental P. But if I was truly shaky at like C, D, E, and F, I'm robbing myself of true growth. So like you have to be honest with like where you truly are, so that
Yeah,
way you
the
can get
confidence.
help.
Yeah. Yeah, in your confidence, just have faith in your confidence. And like you say, being truthful with yourself. And
Yeah,
that's
you got
confidence.
to. You got to. And just understanding, like I always tell myself, wine is personal preference and it's subjective. You always have to go into it thinking like that. And the only person you're trying to please is the one that's drinking.
Yep.
That's the most important person, you know? So because even sometimes when you're tasting with Chuck, who's been doing this for 20 plus years, and you've been tasting with Raul, who's been doing it for what, this almost same amount of time, a little
He didn't
less.
even like wine when he started working with us.
No, and it's fun when you hear people be honest about their journey, because then you understand like there's room for me too. There's a day one for everyone. And I think sometimes people forget about it when it comes to wine, is there is a day one for everyone. And as long as you can understand that, it makes wine way more fun. Way more fun.
Well, thank you. That was really nice hearing those thoughts, because you're spot on. You're spot on, man. So, all right, Abby, the moment of truth. Should I go home,
Chuck,
just hang it up now?
Of course. So Chuck, your number 1 was the 08. Your number 2 was the 09. Your number 3 was the 2005 Stillwater Creek. I would say yours are a little different, because your number 4 was actually a wine we did not taste tonight. It was one of the younger vintages we decided not to send. So your next up would be the 03, followed by the 06, and then the 05 Columbia Valley. So the only thing that we were all pretty consistent of was the 08 was in our top 1 or 2, and the 05 Columbia Valley was all our bottom 1 compared to everything else, which Stillwater Creek, I know someone said that in the chat. It seems pretty obvious that we love that vineyard. That's a showcase of a lot of the wines tonight.
I kind of remember the 03, and the Stillwater Creek 2005 being right there. I mean, that's what I mean by I'm really pleased with all this. I actually, for me, I think my favorite one was Stillwater Creek 2003. I mean, there's a lot of these that are, 2005. But I also really like the 2003. I like them all for different reasons. I would put the 2008 and 2009 are a tie for me. And, I'm not really putting this in necessarily any, well, I guess I am. I would go with the 2005 Stillwater Creek, the 2003. I just like that because they're right on the cusp. One is right past the cusp. The other one is just about to hit the cusp, between the 2003 and the 2005 Stillwater Creek. The 2008 and 2009, what I love about those wines are their potential. They both have it. They both have it in just a little bit more time. They're going to be there. And so my overall take with this whole tasting, though, is these are really nice Merlots, and I'm pleasantly surprised. I wasn't expecting the longevity out of these wines when we made them, and I hadn't done a vertical like this in a long time, and I am just tickled to death of the results and what we're tasting, and it's I'm really happy with what we're doing here. So that's my whole take from this whole tasting, and it's just, but the fun thing is sharing it with other people, and what Dorian was talking about earlier, being able to have somebody else to bounce ideas off of, and it opens up our own mind and thoughts and makes us more open to other ideas, and it's really fun, because sometimes somebody else's thought will be that key to open up another sliver
Yeah.
of your palate, you know, that you never realized and had experienced, or for that particular varietal, or for that vineyard or whatever. And so it just kind of opens the door. And not only that, it's really fun to give each other crap about their palate too.
Well, no, it is fun just to kind of elaborate on what you said though, Chuck. It's like sometimes some people, as we mentioned earlier, some people are more sensitive to certain characteristics than others are. And sometimes it's just a matter of somebody not having enough exposure to specific characteristic to where your soundboard can identify specific characteristic for you. They can bridge that gap. And I think that's what I love about wine. Wine is like a community thing. It's not meant to just be enjoyed by yourself. It is the common denominator between people, and I don't think we understand that. And
Oh, it's really nice. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. And that's what fish hooked me when I first started here. Is I'm having conversations with people, and I'm having a great time with people in the tasting room that I would never meet nor encounter if it was not for what's in my glass. You know how wild that is? This is the common denominator, that this beverage is the common denominator on why we're even here. And then we get to bring our experiences up to this point to enjoy the wine. It's
fun. I just give you an example here. The last couple of nights, I with my kids and stuff, I'm trying to expose them to want different wines and stuff. So this last week I've gotten into Alsace Gewürztraminer, and I pulled out some stuff out of my cellar. I pulled out a 1998 and a 1999 Gewürz from Alsace. And, you know, it was fun exploring it with them and, you know, opening up new doors for them. But it's really, you know, and this was actually over about a 5-day period. And then 2 nights ago, a good buddy of mine texted me, and his wife is from Alsace. And funny thing is, I actually saved these wines to share with them over the years. Well, his wife, both of them decided not to drink alcohol anymore. So for the last 10 years or so, they haven't been. And so finally, I finally gave up on it. I said, man, it's time to consume these Gewürz here. And they, and he texted me a couple days ago and said, hey, I'm going to get back into wine. Can you send me a case of wine? Okay, great. So I did. And well, actually, Abby did. I packed it up. Abby shipped it. Thank you. And but he texted me, and he asked me if I knew about anything about the Rheingau region of Alsace, and I said, you know, I know a little bit about it. I'm really not familiar with their wines. I can't say I've really had any from that particular region of Alsace. Anyways, but I had those 2 bottles that I'd had over the last couple of nights. So I took a picture and sent them to him, and it's just kind of full circle, but I haven't had the heart to tell him yet that I've been saving them to share with him. And now he's getting back into wine. I was, oh, God. Anyhow, but I'm not sure if his wife has started again. But anyway, the whole point is that, yes, it's really nice to enjoy wine by yourself and take great joy in it. But as soon as somebody else walks in the room or you break bread with them, and to Dorian's point, man, it is just so awesome. And, you know, wine always tastes better when you're in a beautiful place, and more importantly, with beautiful people. And I guarantee you it creates better memories. And like you're talking about that communal aspect. And for thousands of years, you know, wine has always brought people together. It's an international language. You know, you can always talk wine just about anywhere you go with people, and share their local fermented beverages, if you will. And it's great, and it brings everybody together. So
Yeah, it's super fun because there's two things that I've encountered in life that is the closest to time travel. Music is one of them, and wine is another. Because
Wow, cool.
either the vintage can hold something dear to you that happened that year, or the flavors that you experience have memories to you too. As in, like, the first time you had, like, if you smell leather, who do you think about? If you get a hint of tobacco, who do you think about? When you get some cherry or plum or dark fruit, what do you think about? Like, it's the closest thing to time travel that I've ever encountered. When you hear a song, rather, you mentioned the Temptations, it immediately incites joy of a happy moment in your life, right? Rather it's Temptations, Taylor Swift, or Nina Simone, or Motown Records, whomever whomever it is, or whatever it is, like, hold on to it.
Did you
'Cause it's
see
the only
Saturday Night
way.
Live this last week?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Bruce was on Saturday Night Live. Oh man. Well, like Dana, I have no idea if you're still on. Oh yeah, you're still on, buddy. You know, I just think of some of the wines we've had in Chima's up at Mount Rainier, at Paradise Inn, and different places, and it's fun. It's really, really, truly fun. You remember wines more when you're in special places, special people. So, well, Abby, do you have any other marketing things, or I should say, people, man? Dorian and I are just going off here, and we'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. Uh-oh, there's a Dana Visser. What did he say? Uh-oh, things are going out. Something about Soro too from Amy. So.
Oh, I have been asking people for ideas for virtual tastings in 2021. So I'm writing down a list of specific varietals, blends. They definitely want more of the vineyard managers, more of these mystery tastings if we can. And then we got a request for a food and wine pairing. And I threw out an idea that would be more of a happy hour. So it's less focusing on a specific wine, but more having key members of our team talk about how they got into wine and about their wine journey. So more learning about us.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That would be fun.
That'd be cool.
All right. Good suggestions, guys. Man, yeah, make this a little more fun. Oh, I like it when other people are involved. So, all right, man. Well, so if anybody has any more questions, this is your time to jump in and go to it. And Abby, like I say, it's hard for me to read all this stuff. So if you have something there you want to throw at me.
Oh man.
So, no, I think we're just kind of bouncing back and forth between different ideas for 2021. But I do have a question for you that I have saved.
Okay.
That is the more younger Merlot vintages, the 2016, and then we just rolled into the 2017. So about library wines, like how long would you recommend maybe holding those off to then enjoy when they're?
Well, 17, it's been, particularly the Reininger anyway, has been a really closed vintage, but it's just now starting to open up. But both those I would recommend holding on to some, but that's my palate. But again, you'll find some really, I think, wonderful qualities of those guys too. So if I would drink a bottle of each right now, and I would lay down a couple bottles of each for the future. But again, I mean, just looking at the qualities of these Merlots as far as Helix, gosh, we're looking anywhere from 10 to 15 years, no problem, I think, with any one of our vintages. But if some vintages, I think the 2017, you're going to be able to put that down probably for a good 15 years plus. But again, that's my palate. So it's hard to give a definite answer for things is so much of it depends on, like I say, where your fence is as far as aged wines. But for most people, definitely, 6-7 years, no problem. You'll still have lots of fruit. You'll start getting into that silkiness. These 2008, 2009 can still use another 5 years. So,
Hey,
but-
Chuck,
yes, sir.
how about the Desiderata? How long should that lay down?
Desiderata, well, which one? Are you talking about the
PNV. I got it last year when we were over there with Kevin
Yeah.
Olson, your buddy.
You can still, hang on to it for another 10 years, but it also has a lot of wonderful age to it already. If you only have one bottle, I would, and if you like a little more fruit forward, I would probably say another 2 to 3 years or something, you'll probably get the most enjoyment out of it. If you have a few more bottles, I mean, you could hang on to that for,
I think I only have one left.
gosh,
Oh.
another,
You
My
just
mouth
lost
another
waters
10
on
years.
this.
It will
Desiderata.
still last
That's-
another 10 years. But the thing about it is it has such a spectrum of different vintages in there that, tell you the truth, I haven't had one for a while. It's been quite a while. But,
Well, the
just-
next group Zoom chat, you should have had one by then, so you can report back.
yeah.
Homework. That's homework. Homework,
Hey,
Chuck.
just to give you an idea of how
Maybe Dorian
things,
will pick it up for you.
I'll do that. I'll
but
take that
how some
responsibility.
things go around here. So we just released our Tahoma, which may be a one-off. I don't know if we'll do it again or not. And our Malbec that we're just releasing, I don't have a single bottle of either one. So our customers wanted it so much, and so we don't have a library. We
I
don't
could
even
sell
have.
you back
Well,
one.
what vintage was that one, Julie? I just saw something flash, a Malbec. Hold it up a little higher so I can see the vintage.
2014, that's 2014,
Oh,
but
there you go.
That's a good one.
we drank
That's a
Yeah.
good one.
we
This-
drank the 2015 at the beginning of this tasting. Oh my God.
And 15 is
At
crazy
the beginning
killer.
of the tasting. Now you're
It
into
was
the
so awesome.
2014. I love it.
Oh my gosh.
All
Yeah, that
right.
Malbec, that 15 and 14, killers.
Well, we
Yeah.
can tell that you guys are definitely isolated. That's
Oh
for
my
sure. You're
gosh.
not going anywhere.
Yeah, we didn't have let's hang out. You got the good stuff. I want to be
Yeah.
your friend.
All right,
Yeah.
so the next tasting is in West Seattle at our house.
Oh, perfect.
Done.
All right. Well, guys, it's been a lot of fun. Certainly fun seeing you all. Thank you so much for joining us here. Thank you, Dorian. Your comments were just sort of spot on, and really appreciate it. You too, Abby. Abby, she always does such a great job of keeping us in control and keeping us on track. So thank you so much, Abby. And thank you to all of you folks for indulging us, and it's in the wines too. We'd like to say it's just so much more fun to enjoy these wines and consume them, check them out with other people. So cheers.